to the POLCAST. By the way, I have come out of my curmudgeon shell, I guess you could say. A lot of people have told me that I'm somewhat of a old-fashioned throwback curmudgeon. Partially because I don't like women wearing shoes in the house. Which reminds me of a joke. Why do women have small feet? So they get closer to the sink to wash those dishes. Chauvinist, yeah, I've been called that as well too, but I'm not. I can assure you of that. It was just a joke. And unfortunately, in today's world, jokes are not funny. Most of the people doing the jokes, as far as the comedians, they're not funny. The guy who did the roast the other day for, not the roast, but he was at, I forgot what the event was for Trump, but it was pretty funny. Made that comment about Puerto Rico. And anybody who's Puerto Rican, right here, my grandfather, he looks like Bruno Mars a little bit. But you know damn well, if you have any older, like I just turned 48, excuse me. So I'm considered, I guess, a little bit older, Generation X. And, you know, I can still remember a time when there were no cell phones, where other Puerto Ricans were working on their Celicas on the street. You know, not in a garage or in a carport, but right on the city street. That is true Americana, folks. And with that being said, I guess I should go into real quick, where the hell have I been? Well, I was in jail, and I've had multiple flashpoints in my life in the last 3 years that have been pretty interesting. You know, I thank God every day that I'm here because it's an opportunity to learn, and I'll always keep myself a student. I'm not smart enough to know it all. I'm not a very smart person. I am somebody who's been burned quite a bit, and I recognize manipulation and lies, and I can't fucking stand, especially a woman lying to me. I just can't. It's like my biggest pet peeve, and I apologize for my language, but this is an adult show anyway. And you know what? Honestly, we are at the end of our fucking rope. We are about to experience a flashpoint in history with what's about to happen on Tuesday. During this election season, because it's not an election day anymore like it used to be when I was a kid. We'd be like, the tallies are in and we have the outcome of the election. It's midnight here on the East Coast. Those days are long gone. They're no more. Cell phones, laptops, TVs, cars, refrigerators, air conditioning units, heating units. Pretty much anything you can think of that's electronic develops over time. It evolves, with the exception of two things. Our ability to traverse our own solar system and voting. See, because as somebody who's a former soldier and also former Marine, who's worked in multiple countries around the world, I've never directly assisted with any type of voting or anything, but, excuse me, I am familiar with how we would approach something like that in another country. And I guarantee you there ain't no fucking machines anywhere with multiple digital orifices on the housing unit of that computer or machine to allow for people to control it remotely anywhere on the planet. We know this is going on. Both parties use it, for their own side. It's bullshit, really. The US presidential, the House elections are the most important elections on the planet. And the reason why I say that is because if the lights go out here, the rest of the world will be in darkness as well. And I personally, I took an oath. I swore an oath to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And there is no end of contract for that oath I took. And I that's not a call for violence or anything like that. That means that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to ensure my lifestyle, my children's lifestyle, will continue on. And in the military, we have an escalation of force. I don't want to get anywhere near pointing a gun at somebody else. Because when it gets to that point, there are shadow puppets in the background just salivating at that. They're like, good, the monkeys will kill themselves. Fuck you, motherfucker. All you fucking elitists, kiss my ass. Kiss my ass. Our whole existence as humans, the one thing that we do really well is screw over other people. I'm not saying that we're not, there's parts of our existence that isn't benevolent, but if you look throughout recorded history, there's been a lot of screwing over of people. And I, for one, am tired of it. Especially because of the level of prosperity that we have in this country at this point in time. There shouldn't be any of this going on right now. I'm going to touch on that a little later. And I'm getting a little off track because I'm getting heated. That's why I'm here. This is therapy for me. I don't know what else to do. You can't be Rambo, even though I am a Green Beret. It's just, you can't be Rambo. It won't work. They want that. Just like I'm going to show you, there's a little snippet, and I'm sure most of you have seen in the news some of the bullshit that's been going on with early voting. Like escorting 20 newcomers to the front of the line in front of Americans that have been paying taxes for decades. Fuck you. Fuck you and the boat you rode in on. And I'm not talking about the people that are being used. I'm talking about the NGOs that are getting U.S. tax dollars to pull this shit on us. And shame on us. I'm not saying people weren't grinding their teeth while they're watching it. But at some point, you got to take off the kid gloves. Maybe you got to jump in front of that door and say, you're not doing this today. You could throw me in jail, but I'm sending you a message. You're not going to let these people get in front of all these Americans that pay their taxes, that play the game the right way, that they're told as long as they do, you're going to be all right. You're going to be taken care of. And then all of a sudden, if you were at Six Flags, you let somebody jump in front of you, you're going to fucking beat their ass. If you're in the grocery store waiting to check out and somebody jumps in front of you, you're not going to stand for that. But yet we allow millions of people, and we allow the people that are supposed to be vested in our best interests, representative republic, not true democracy, representative republic. And they're supposed to represent us, not people that don't live here. But the game for them is getting tired. They're tired of it. They're like, well, let's crank it up a notch. I mean, we torture kids. We've got, endless supplies of blood that we can drink. We need something else. What else do we need? Let's collapse the U.S. government. We need to get rid of this completely. Sure, it's pretty much gone already as it is, but we need to completely run that motherfucker into the ground. And hey, they're doing it because the disease of normalcy, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to look over there because that's really fucked up. But I'll go ahead and look at all these people getting blown up or shot or, jumped or on the internet. That's okay. Well, I, for one, can't stand for it anymore. I couldn't stand for it for a while. After COVID, I woke up to it. And shame on me. I mean, there are some other things I got involved with or tried to at the local level. And I'm not saying I haven't stopped. But really, we're about out of time, folks. And that's the sad part of this all. We are about out of time. And getting people to wake up to that fact is excruciatingly hard. And me personally too, I like being comfortable. But I think I have an obligation at this moment to make people feel a little uncomfortable with maybe their possible choice here on this Tuesday that's coming up, November 5th, if you haven't voted already. Like I said, this isn't an election day. This is now election month. We have a whole month of voting. Hell, let's drag it on for 2 months. Why not, right? What could be better? I don't know. What could be better. So, the last time I was here, we were discussing the collapse of Afghanistan, which was tragic, especially because, my kids they're Afghan. That's their culture. I'm not, but that they are. And it's terrible what we've done to that country and what we've done to the Afghan people. They've been screwed over for a while. And now we've essentially, our hand in creating the Taliban as well. We've created a massive terrorist state over there. We've created the new Cobra. And I actually have a video that I'm going to show you to demonstrate that. So first, let me get back on target. The last time I was here, I was talking about Afghanistan. And that's initially when we were, right after Biden got elected, we started seeing this massive push of illegals in the United States. Why? Because during the debates, he told the entire third world, surge the border. You deserve it. You earned it. Ice cream for everybody. And that's exactly what they did. In numbers that we've really, really never seen before. And it is starting to be visible to everybody in every corner of this country and the world, because it's been done in Europe already. And the way these people work, they have their networks. You go to college, you're part of a sorority or fraternity, and you link up with other people that possibly could help you in some future endeavor, And that's how these things work. And these elitists, besides just doing the corruption thing, they got together and figured, you know what, we can fucking take this whole thing over. and turn ourselves into, I don't know, kind of like demigods or something like that. And that really seems to be the path that we're on. Um, and if we don't break free of our frozen like state, our hypnotic state, our this trance like state that we're in, there's another kind of term for it or name, or I call it Plato's cave. Nothing new under the sun, folks. Absolutely nothing new under the sun. So why after 3 years coming back to do this? Because, well, we're, like I said, we're in the end game. We are preparing to breach the door. And it's almost like, to use a military term, what I mean by that is, if you're going on an operation, say there's a door right here, this is a building, you're going to hit this building. We've got to go through this door. That is our opening. That is our gateway to get inside this building and conduct the operation for whatever it is. Intel, maybe a HVT, something like that. We have to go through this door. The doorway for us, not just in America, but the world really, is Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. That will be the next flashpoint for us, where we're not going to know what happens right away. And I'm going to give my my prediction on the election. Spoiler alert. There's not going to be a winner. And it'll be lawfare for a while. And who knows what else. World War III maybe? Yeah. We'll get into that here in a second. So we had Afghanistan. We have this millions upon millions upon millions of illegals flood our border. As somebody who worked in Central and South America, I can tell you a large portion of those people are turds. Trump was right. They are turds. Their first act as somebody wanting to be a citizen of this country is breaking the law. And yeah, things are a little different in Central and South America. I was in Ilopango, El Salvador, San Salvador City, which was a hotbed for gang activity several years ago when I was there. And what is his name? Bukele, he's got a weird name, has really cleaned up the country of El Salvador. And good for those people. That they deserve that. They've been put through some hell. And, you know, he is a beacon of what can happen in other places. You know, I don't know why a lot of these smaller countries, it's like they have an inferiority complex that they can't do something on that level, that massive. And El Salvador did. And Godspeed to them. Continue. You are a shining beacon to the rest of the world right now. Little El Salvador. And I wonder what some of these people think, these El Salvadorians that are, you know, over here like, damn, maybe I should go back. You know? And personally, I kind of hope you do think like that. Not because I want you out of the country, because if people, wherever you are, that's where you are. If you fix the problems where you are, instead of just, we've got to abandon ship. Well, the ship's still floating. If good people take an interest in their government and their community, where they live, things can change, but the whole world suffers from the disease of normalcy. And I'm included in that too. So, with that being said, you know, I talked a little bit about Afghanistan, the fall of Afghanistan 3 years ago. And I feel like since then, there's just been this massive fog of war. There's so many things happening that it really does just cloud our judgment and cloud our sense of time, what's happening, because all of a sudden, boom, we're here. Like I said, we are about to cross the threshold into a fatal funnel, and we don't know what's on the other side. And as somebody who studies the history, not just U.S. history, but world history, that's not a very good, that's not a good position to be in. Millions and millions of illegals here in the United States. If we just looked at it like a small number, just do 1%. I mean, 1% of the, they don't know. I've heard 12. I've heard 12 and 20 million for 30 years. They don't know. I think it's probably upwards of 30 to 40 million. 1% of that. If 1% of that 30 million, even if it was 10 million, 1%, that's a lot of shitheads. And then these people on the way up, especially if they're coming through the Darien Gap, they were getting debit cards, cell phones, registration cards for voting. That sounds like tradecraft to me. Recruiting people right on the spot. You get off the boat, you are now recruited. Jose, you are now Robert James Patterson. We're going to send you up to Toledo. We're going to keep filling that debit card as long as you keep voting Democrat. Now, obviously, this is speculation. But hey, fuck. If Kamala can say that, Trump is, he's going to call up the military and start killing people, even though the only evidence we have of that is the Democrats, prepping paperwork and stuff for violent acts against Americans using active duty military. They're the only ones that are calling for that or actively creating documentation and covering their ass in case they do have to do that. I don't see Trump doing that. I didn't see him doing that either in the 4 years he was already president. Because he was already president once, and he wasn't doing these things to people. He actually relinquished his power, even though there was all sorts of red flags and smoke after the 2020 election. He gave up his power. So that jug don't hold water, in my opinion. Now, with that being said, let's go to slide number 1. Now, this slide has a couple numbers. The one there's actually 2 here that are very important to me as I've been kind of bloviating about the border and need to get back on track. Terrorist encounters, known or suspected encounters at the border. And you look at those numbers, and that's not a good sign. That's terrifying. And you think of 2023, 172 terrorist encounters. Well, as somebody who was trained in unconventional warfare, 172 guys, that's a company right there. That's company plus. And you could do a lot of damage with that many guys. Then you have to think about, somebody like me is thinking of force multiplication. So obviously, if it was 172 and they let these motherfuckers into the country, they're probably going to link up with other people that have bad intent as well. That's called force multiplication or unconventional warfare. There's kind of a trend here. It's kind of the things we train for in the military, some of us in the soft community. it almost looks like it's, well, gosh darn, it looks like it's being done to us. The other number that concerns me on this, because I have children, is the 300 plus thousand children that, wouldn't you know it, the federal government just does not know where these kids are. Now, they allowed them into the country and just said, hey, who wants these kids? Who wants this 10-year-old little girl, huh? Who's already been raped several times on the way up from Colombia, traversing the Pan American Highway. Who cares, right? As long as football's on. The Fall Classic just ended. It's beautiful. Tearing up the city of LA. They got to board it up because their team won baseball. So these numbers are extremely disturbing. The 300,000 plus children missing. The other millions of people coming across are here for a very specific reason. Now, some of you may have heard this before, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more. It's called replacement migration. And essentially, it is when you have a population of people that do not want to work, you bring in people from outside of that population to do the work that will work for less or work longer hours. And in Afghanistan, you had all these, big corporations in Iraq too. I don't know what comes to name, like Halliburton. Halliburton, I think is one of them. And I believe they had a connection. Who is that? Oh, that's right. Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris, the antithesis of what it means to be a neocon, a war hawk, warmonger, or part of the industrial war machine. Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris. Yeah, that's just what I want. Somebody who wants more war. So replacement migration replaces the individuals that do not want to work or will not work these jobs that are they're just beneath me, and I will not do it. So if you don't have people that don't want to do the bottom feeding type jobs, well, hell, just bring a bunch of people in from the third world. They'll do it. But be careful what you wish for. You wish for a low wage workforce, or you're going to get what you pay for. And as you can see here, and I mean, this is just a couple things. I just did quick searches, pulled some stuff up. This isn't even touching the tip of the iceberg. And one of the things that's going on, if anybody's been looked into the Darien Gap, Michael Yon, former, I think he was a 10th group guy or a first group guy, a Green Beret. He has done a lot of research and reporting on combat, whether it was U.S. combat or conflicts going on all around the world. He is on top of it. And one of the other things he's on top of is the Darien Gap, reporting on all these NGOs receiving U.S. tax dollars or tax dollars via the UN to create programs, to create infrastructure down in the Darien Gap, to fast track people from the third world into the United States for an accelerated decline to collapse the system. And if they could keep the dollar, they would. But it's not so much about the dollar as it is the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That is the big problem. And they slow chip at it a little bit here, chink, 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 chink. They just kind of, hitting around the edges, taking a little bit off here and a little bit off there. And that's why we are here in the midst of a replacement migration and a color revolution. And a lot of this stems from all the way back to, well, I mean, it actually goes back, I think personally, over 100 years. But really, when they started hammering the blueprints home, you go back to the inception of the Club of Rome and their climate change theories and how to control a population, and that kind of morphed into, with little testing going on in countries around the world, into Agenda 21, which happened in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. And right around that time, you had a lot of significant events happen. You had the Russians, the Soviets pull out of Afghanistan in 89. You had the wall come down in 89. You had the continued collapse of the Soviet machine until it was no more. And I believe that was also in 92, the same year as Agenda 21 in Rio de Janeiro. So continuing on with this replacement migration, and I kind of already mentioned this about the Six Flags. You wouldn't let somebody jump in front of you at the DMV, but these folks can skip the immigration line and the voting line, which we had an example in Pennsylvania. I'm sure some of you have seen the video of people waiting in line for hours. And then all of a sudden, some NGO group brings about 20 newcomers up to the front of the line. And I think that was probably to elicit some type of response from people in the line, hoping that somebody would get violent. The people that were being used, well, everybody in that scenario was being used, but the individuals that were newcomers, even just looking at them, they looked very uncomfortable, like, I don't want to be here. But, you know, they're putting money on that debit card. They're paying for my cell phone. They're giving me rent assistance. They got me a job. They're going to pay for my school. They're giving me EBT, yada, yada, yada. All these freebies that they did not earn. Meanwhile, parts of North Carolina, Big Bend of Florida, we've got people that still don't have power, family members that don't know where their families are. Americans, people that have paid into the system. Fuck them, right? Because that's what it seems like. So the border is huge for me. And I didn't really say this in the beginning. I am not a fan of Trump. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. What I am is a constitutionalist. And I believe, and I swore an oath to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the American people, not to politicians, not to even the president, in my opinion, because presidents come and go. Some are good, some are bad. Most of them are bad because they're controlled by somebody else. It's a power system that we just seem to not want to kick off of us. Like if we had a leech on us, I'll fucking pull that thing, yeah, or burn it off. But for whatever reason, we seem okay with putting people in power that do not deserve it. And not only that, absolute power corrupts absolutely every time. And these people are a perfect example of that. But still, we continue to go about our day with blinders on. And I really, really hope that will change here in this flashpoint we're about to experience. It's going to be painful, but I think maybe it'd be enough pain where we don't completely burn it down and we kind of get back on the right track. I'm praying for that. But I'm not going to hold my breath. I can tell you that. Okay, so what are some of the other things that have really been bothering me? Well, the biggest one probably, you know, outside of immigration is the fact that we're on the verge of World War III. And not a lot of people like to acknowledge that, but it is the truth. We are closer than we've ever been to World War III since World War II. And I'd like to play a little video for you now. It's about so this last August, Taliban's been doing this since they won the war. They have a parade. And I did a little video that after the fall of Afghanistan, of all the new toys that they have. And they weren't showing a lot of U.S. firepower just yet. I don't know if it was just because they didn't know. Maybe their handlers in the CIA told them they can't do it yet. But this last parade, it made me feel like it was a message to their handlers, whoever that is around the world, CIA, that we're ready. We're ready. We trained up. We know this equipment now. We're ready for whatever operation it is you're getting ready to send us into. We're ready. So I thought it would be interesting to show you this video and just how ready they are. So this is the Taliban's updated Christmas infomercial. This is part of it, at least, to get those orders in today for the Taliban. So without further ado, let's play this Taliban video. Wow, how about that, huh? I think that should get a yeah. Now that is some firepower, some major firepower. Hey, I think I even drove one of those trucks that was in that video. That video to me tells me that we're ready. We're ready. And 3 years ago, too, I thought the same thing. I was like, well, we just created Cobra. We just created the largest terrorist network in the world. We gave them billions of dollars worth of equipment. And guess what else? We're still giving the government of Afghanistan $40 million a week. And how it's being routed into the country, it's supposed to be like this NGO that handles the funds, but there's no outside influence, no outside presence. It is all being done internally. So I'm sure, it's modeled after the U.S. government. So I'm sure there's zero absolutely zero corruption going on there. No, they take that stuff seriously, from what I understand. So, fog of war. That's a big one. That's I think we've been in it for a while now. Really, since the stewardship of 2021, after we had all the January 6th stuff and Biden, he took control of the stewardship. So fog of war. That is the other thing that has been weighing heavy on me. And what do I mean by fog of war? Well, if you, as far as Ukraine, if you go all the way back to 2014, I mean, we orchestrated the coup, and it pretty much this whole time, all it's been is to put pressure on Russia. So hopefully they'll, we've been poking the bear for years. Russia wanted to be a part of NATO after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Clinton and the war hawks, the industrial war machine, said no, because they need them as the enemy. And I'm not some Putin apologist. I'm not pro-Putin. I am pro-Constitution and Bill of Rights. The current administration, that's Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, are in favor of continued support to Ukraine. And for those of you that don't know anything about Ukraine, Ukraine was allied with the Nazis during World War II. That's why I put in, make reference to the Azov Battalion, because it's important. Because we are supporting individuals that align themselves with Nazi belief system, a Nazi belief system. Fourth Reich type stuff. I've heard even Klaus Schwab make reference to the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Sounds like the Fourth Reich. If you ask me, where man will merge with machine. Yeah. He's not a Nazi, though. Not Klaus Schwab, who started the World Economic Forum. Now, his dad was definitely a Nazi, but not Klaus. So you look at things like the U.S. lifting the ban on supporting groups like the Azov Battalion, or I don't know, the war in Gaza that does not seem to be stopping any time at all. We just gave another $425 million to Ukraine this last week. And Putin essentially said they are prepping and conducting drills, simulating a nuclear exchange. Oh, and we have North Koreans now fighting in Ukraine as well. It is only a matter of time before this drags NATO in. I mean, NATO is already involved. NATO is pulling the strings. So you can see the puppet, which is Ukraine. You can partially see the strings. If you're really paying attention, you can see the strings, no problem. When is this going to end? And I think Putin has really demonstrated some patience, some common sense, some ability to be the adult in the room and understand that they're trying to provoke him into acting out. I think he's holding out, hoping that somehow Trump gets in there. Well, I ain't holding my breath for that either. Which brings me to the next thing about Trump. The fact that, I don't know, There's been 2 assassination attempts that I know of for sure. And then you have the reports as well that the Persians, Iran, is trying to kill him as well, which makes me kind of, I don't know, go, Well, then that does kind of make sense, like because Biden giving billions of dollars to Iran before their whole attack on a rave where Israel stood down. None of that makes any sense. The other thing is the active coup d'etat that is going on currently. Because you may be voting for Kamala Harris, but she was not voted in as the party's choice to run for president the traditional way, no matter how you look at it. And that individual also didn't even garner 1%. 1% of the vote in the primaries. If there was ever a person that reeked of the elites, the DC swamp, the one that will do exactly what they're told, it's Kamala Harris. Like, I listened to a couple things last night about just her name and the root of her name and how just very scary it is for the times. If you look at a spiritual level, and I might get into that hopefully right before maybe Monday. I'm going to try to do another video. I also have an interview with my sister that I need to put out because she actually witnessed the corruption firsthand back in 2020 during the election. So she is a perfect candidate for the deep state. She will do exactly what they tell her to do. She will do it with a smile, probably laughter as well. And will not even bat an eye when lying to the American people. I mean, right now she's running contradictory commercials, depending on where you live in the country. Some are, pro-Israel and some are pro-Palestinian. She's talking out of both sides of her mouth. And the people that have been there for a while, that know how the system works, and that are probably running a large portion of this cabal, are those 7 individuals right down there underneath the United Nations, NATO, European Union, World Bank, and the ICC flags. And you notice how all those flags kind of look the same? Kind of like it's some world government. Kind of like that's what they want. Like they're already letting their handlers know who their and where their allegiance is to. Like, does anybody find it odd that Jill Biden, who's just not a very good human being, but for Halloween, she chooses a panda bear costume for Halloween. That's interesting. I wonder what she's trying to promote. Seems very odd, in my opinion. So, moving on, the next thing that really grinds my gears are those that have been left behind. if you're, I mean, if you're an illegal immigrant and you're trans, you're a fucking unicorn. You might be the next president. You don't even have to be a U.S. citizen. They might make you the next president if you are those things. You identify as those things. He, hit, what, he, she, I, whatever, however it goes. I'm not even familiar with that. But if you're an American that pays their taxes, that tries to do the right thing for their children, that votes, that has a job, that doesn't try to leech off the system, you're left behind. You're irrelevant. Because more than likely, you want to work towards home ownership. You want to work towards financial independence. You want to work towards lowering your overall debt. All things that will not be tolerated in this new utopia that these global elites are trying to create for us. High inflation made finances worse for 65% of Americans last year. That one stands out to me because seeing how we're going into voting season, we're already in voting season, but election day is Tuesday. When you step into that booth, I would hope that we would all ask ourselves, is my life better today? Was it better yesterday? Or does it look like it will get better tomorrow? And my choice in this voting booth, based off of what I've already seen, because take this into consideration. You've seen Trump for 4 years, and you've seen Kamala for 4 years. Which one has bear fruit? Which one bears fruit? Which one of those two has accomplished something for the greater good, something for the American people? Which one has just hid behind their power, bloviated, made excuses, didn't show up for work, cast responsibility, blame, and fault on other individuals, and cackled their way all the way to a position of possibly being the first female president of the United States of America without really earning it. That is the model for the DNC currently. You don't need to earn it. You just need to lie. And if you're good at lying, you get there. Something else on here, and let me take this off. U.S. states show violent crime dramatically falling. So why is there this rising clash with perception? Well, I'll tell you why, motherfuckers. Because you don't include the largest metro areas in the United States of America. That's a blatant lie. That's blatantly misleading people, and all for political gain. I included that because the way they provide violent crime numbers now, they take out major metro areas. So, for example, Chicago's not included. New York's not included. LA's not included. Philadelphia's not included. Houston's not included. You have the biggest cities in the country that are not included in these numbers. So, of course, by default, when you're taking out millions upon millions of the population in the metro areas where the majority of crime happens, you are going to show lower numbers. That is a facade. And it is manipulation. Much like the manipulation that they had the other day in Philadelphia during some NASCAR or IndyCar race. They are showing tabulations, voting tabulations for the state of Pennsylvania as in complete, 100% of the numbers in. The fucking election hasn't even taken place. That is voter intimidation. That is a psyop. But you know what? They'll get away with it. They've been getting away with it for decades. Because the media all sings the same tune. And what do I mean by that? Well, I have a video to actually demonstrate that, and we're gonna play that right now.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 The poet W.H. Auden summed it up best.
Is extremely dangerous to our democracy. It's funny how they don't even realize that they are just parrots. They're just parroting what they're being told to say. Also, I mean, for the most part, anybody on the news, they're just an actor. Now, I know most people know this. I'm just kind of venting once again. And it, like I said in the beginning, I thank God every day that I am alive at this point in time, and you should be thankful for that as well. You are experiencing a piece of history that generations could only read about or be told about. It is surreal. And I'm excited about the possibilities that could come out of this election. But I'm also not naive about what could come out of this election. I want to play another video for you that I hope really hits home for a lot of people. Because God forbid something like this happen. But I think people should see it because there is a very large probability that something like this could happen. So this is what we're facing. And you have assholes and idiots in Hollywood and in the media that say, well, we could survive a nuclear war. No, we cannot. It's game over. It is mad. It is mutually assured destruction. And anybody who tells you different is a fucking idiot. And if they think that they can hide in their bunkers, these multi-million-dollar bunkers that they've created, you just made a really expensive tomb. And you don't think the people won't be like, man, I know where this guy is. He's got all his food and stuff, and he's in this bunker. I have the code. He thinks he only has the code, but I do too. You just made a tomb for yourself. So, this is what we'd be looking at if we have to go through some type of nuclear exchange. Because once that domino drops, it'll be hell on earth.
Between Russia and the United States. Based on non-classified data, the aftermath might go something like this. When one side launches nuclear missiles, the other side detects them and fires back before impact. U.S. submarine-launched ballistic missiles from west of Norway start striking Russia after about 10 minutes, and Russian ones from north of Canada start hitting the U.S. a few minutes later. The very first strikes are high-altitude EMP attacks, frying electronics and power grids by creating an electromagnetic pulse of tens of thousands of volts per meter. The next strikes target command and control, as well as nuclear launch facilities. Land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles take about half an hour to arrive. Major cities are targeted, both because they contain military facilities and to stymie the enemy's post-war recovery. Some cruise missiles take hours to reach their target. Each impact creates a fireball about as hot as the core of the sun, followed by a radioactive mushroom cloud. These intense explosions vaporize people nearby and cause fires and blindness further away. The fireball expansion then causes a blast wave that damages buildings, crushing nearby ones. The United Kingdom and France have nuclear capabilities and are obliged by NATO's Article 5 to defend the US. So Russia hits them too. Firestorms engulf many cities, where storm-level winds fan the flames, igniting anything that can burn, melting glass and some metals, and turning asphalt into flammable hot liquid. But the explosions, the electromagnetic pulse, and the radioactivity aren't the worst part. Nuclear winter is, caused by the black carbon smoke from the nuclear firestorms. The Hiroshima atomic bomb caused such a firestorm, but today's hydrogen bombs are much more powerful. A large city like Moscow, with almost 50 times more people, can create much more smoke. And a firestorm sends plumes of black smoke up into the stratosphere, far above any rain clouds that would otherwise wash out the smoke. This black smoke gets heated by sunlight, lofting it like a hot air balloon for up to a decade. High-altitude jet streams are so fast that it takes only a few days for the smoke to spread across much of the northern hemisphere. In the meantime, Earth gets freezing cold, even during the summer, with farmland in Kansas cooling by about 20 degrees centigrade or 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and other regions cooling almost twice as much. A recent scientific paper estimates that over 5 billion people could starve to death, including around 99% of those in the United States, Europe, Russia, and China. We obviously don't know how many people will survive a nuclear war. But if it's even remotely as bad as scientists think, then it has no winners, merely losers. It's easy to feel powerless, but the good news is that there is something you can do to help. Please share this video, because the more people know about nuclear war, the less likely it is that we'll start one.
Oh, God, I hope that's true. Unfortunately, the people that are holding the controls or the buttons to said nuclear power don't want to always give up their power, I guess you could say. So I don't know how that's going to play out. But I thought it was important for people to see what it is that we're dealing with nuclear fallout. I don't think a lot of people have really put that into perspective, because for decades it wasn't really talked about. As a kid, I lived out in Wyoming, South Dakota, Colorado for a period of time. This is early 80s. And we were still having fallout drills when I was a kid in Wyoming. And I can vaguely remember that. I also remember throwing snowballs at a window and getting the Board of Education on my ass, which was my own fault. But I pray to God that we don't have to witness something like that, because then it is the end of an epoch. And like Einstein said, I don't know what weapons they're going to be using for World War III, but they'll be using bow and arrow and sticks and stones for World War IV. Lastly, before I go this evening, the one thing I didn't touch on, but it's part of the fog of war, but it's important because it is connected as well. These things are all connected, and this individual is definitely connected to the highest echelons of not only the entertainment industry, but the political world as well. And I love movies, I love music, but I don't worship any of these people because they ain't any better than you or me. And unfortunately, we live in a world today that puts these people on a pedestal and almost grants them godlike powers because of their fame. And I look at all these people, especially like LeBron, Leonardo DiCaprio, Oprah, even Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Madonna, Jay-Z. If the world were to end tomorrow, and by that, if you're paying attention to that video, you notice the EMP pulse, the detonation of nuclear devices over a populated area. That is that's certain destruction. It'll knock out everything electronic. And in addition to that, you're going to get a shower of radioactive material. So it's certain death. And at that point, how important is basketball? How important is Tay-Tay and how many boyfriends she's had? Martha Stewart and what fucking crockpot she uses. It's going to be irrelevant. What's going to be important is, can I protect my children? Do I have a clean source of water? How am I going to get food? All these questions and more. But you know what? I'm going to try to lay it all down on Monday. The people on the other side, the evil party, they have a plan. It's called Plan B. The morning after pill, essentially for abortion. I have a different plan. It's called Plan B. And it's about sustaining life. So, like Alex Jones would say, I don't know how all this is going to end, but if you want to fight, you got one. I'm going to try to do this as often as I can. It's not for subscriptions or likes. It's not for anybody, really. Except for me and God. Because I feel called to do something. And it's not this yet. I don't want to do that anyway. I don't want to shoot anybody. I don't want to fight anybody. I want to make pizza. And I pray to God that I will get an opportunity to do that. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Yeah, soon. So with that being said, I'm going to sign off for this early morning, November 3rd, 2024. My, how the world is changing. You all have a good morning. And we'll talk to you soon. Godspeed, and long live liberty.